Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Knit, Knot, and Weave podcast. My name is Dorothy, and I am coming to you from Columbia, Maryland, which is approximately halfway between Baltimore and Washington, D.C. It has been quite a while since my last podcast, several months in fact. I've had a lot of things happening in my life that prevented me from podcasting, and we will get to that when we get to the life updates. Otherwise, I have a few finished objects to share with you, a few works in progresses, a couple of acquisitions, not very much, and then life updates. So, if you would, have yourself something to drink, be it something cold or warm, whatever you like. Grab your knitting and let's go. So hello, today is Sunday, October 1st. No, this is not Vlogtober. I don't do Vlogtober, but it is October 1st. It is Sunday night, and I am trying to get back into the swing of things. So if I do a lot of ums or oohs or blah, 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 blahs, please excuse me because I am very, very out of practice. But if you would like to get in contact with me, you can find me on Instagram as Knit, Knot, and Weave, and you can find me on Ravelry as Philya, Phewelya, or you are welcome to email me at knitknotandweave@gmail.com. So, my first finished object is what I am wearing. So it turns out that I decided to jump on the Ranunculus bandwagon, and I went stash diving, and I found that I had several skeins of this, what is this, Veil yarn. I know, it's got the label from the yarn shop that I bought it from. But it is, where are my glasses? Yeah, things haven't gotten any better over the last few months. It's a 50% cotton, 40% viscose, and 10% silk blend. And I went ahead and I did the, what was it? The super twisty, loosey-goosey cast on. I don't know exactly what it was called. And I did follow the directions for the size 48 because I do have a size 48 chest. I did not want this to be super big on me, but it is bigger than I had originally wanted, but I still love how it turned out. There was someone on Ravelry who had made a modification to the edging of this ranunculus, and I'll show that to you right now. Chair out of the way. So you can see they did a elongated stitch at the bottom, and then I did a crocheted border with the bobbles, and I just love how it came out. And then right before the bobbles there's a garter ridge, so I went ahead and edged my sleeves with the same garter ridge edging, so it's nice and loose and flowy, and I think it'll be just perfect to wear over some summer dresses. If it's going to be like a cool day, like maybe early spring or late fall, I could still wear my summer tank dresses and just throw this over it, and I think it'll be fun. So I am super excited that this is finished. I totally understand the desire to knit more, and I do want to knit another one. I have some Manchalopus in my stash that I'm thinking I'd like to make a second one out of. But we'll see what happens. So next up, I have my It's a Beautiful Whirl wrap by Michael Sellick. If you see me looking down, it's just because I have my notes down here. And I used Sheepy's Whirl yarn for this. It called for 2 skeins of this. This is a very old project. It was started, oh gosh, Melissa, when did we take that cross-country trip? 2 years ago? Summer of 2020, I think? Is that when you moved home, Melissa? No, summer 2021. Summer 2021. We went and picked up my friend Melissa. I flew out with her mom, Ellen, and she was living near Las Vegas at the time. And so we got to go to Jimmy Bean's Wool, and they had this shawl done up. And of course, samples, samples, samples. They always get you when you go into the yarn shops. And we both saw this sample and we loved it, so we bought it. Well, we didn't buy the sample, we bought the yarn and the pattern. So here it is. Mine is very long. I do like the colors. The coloring of it is beautiful. It did call for a mohair edging, but because mine turned out to be so wide, I'd say it's almost like 22 inches wide, I didn't bother with the edging. But as you could see, it goes stunning. It goes stunning. Ugh. As you can see, it gradiates. So this is where it started with the skein, and it goes all the way in to the darker purple. And then the second skein, I would start from the darker purple and gradiate it out. And so here it is. Several different kinds of stitches. Oops, that's the wrong way. So it'll be a nice wrap for the summer, because Sheepy's is, I think it's 100% cotton. Let me see. Okay, Sheepy's Whirls is 60% cotton and 40% acrylic. And I guess I'll tell you the colorway that I used was Tasty Num Num. Tasty Num Num. Tasty Num Num. So I'm very happy with it. What's nice is that it's cotton and acrylic. So if need be, it can go in the washing machine. I probably would still put it inside of a garment bag to wash, but I'm very pleased with how this came out. You may have remembered me, if you are an old-time viewer, you may remember me talking about this shawl in previous episodes and sharing how Melissa and I, we both chose the same color. We like this gradient in the Sheepy's yarn. And the pattern, oh, I don't even have it with me. I want to say, I believe the pattern called for an H hook. And is that a 5.5? Yes, H is a 5.5 hook. And we have discovered that I am a rather looser knitter. And my friend Melissa is a very tight knitter, because she went up a hook size to crochet this shawl. I wound up ripping back and going down a crochet hook because I felt mine was too loosey-goosey. And somehow my shawl still wound up bigger than hers. Go figure. Next up, I have completed my first colorwork sweater. It is not an adult sweater. It's not a baby sweater. It's a child's sweater. Child's sweater. I cannot speak this evening. I was looking for a pattern to knit for my youngest niece for Christmas. And I took measurements of her, probably back in March. No, it was before March because I think I shared this on my last podcast. Anyway, I took measurements of her before I started it. Unfortunately, the little stinker had the nerve to grow. I don't know what my younger sister feeds her kids, but they grow like weeds. So anyway, so I had started this for my niece. It is the Bean and Olive sweater by Andrea Mowry. And I used, the purple was from my stash. It was Trendsetter Merino 6. And then the color work portion, which I absolutely love. Look at those colors in there. It is, I had about approximately half a skein left over from a shawl I had woven. And it is Olan's, Olann. I do not have the belly band for that skein anymore, but it is Ulan, Olann, Olann, Irish hand-dyed wool, and I don't remember the color name. But I will have a link to my Ravelry project page, and so all the information for this pattern and yarn that I use and needle sizes you can find on my Ravelry page. But this was my first colorwork sweater. I think I managed to keep my tension pretty good across all the color working, so there shouldn't be any pulling or puckering, I guess it is what people say happens sometimes. I did not go up a needle size for the colorwork. I felt like my tension was pretty loose, and I think it looks pretty good. Of course, time will tell. Hopefully I didn't even tell you guys who it was for. So since my niece grew, the nerve, these kids, don't they know they're supposed to stay little forever? Anyway, because my niece sprouted overnight, I didn't want to well, one, I knew I didn't have enough of this purple to make the bigger size, and two, by the time I realized it, I had completed all the color work and I was not going to undo it. So I just went ahead and completed the size that I had planned to do, and I'm going to gift it to my cousin's little girl because she is 2 years younger than my niece. And so this will be her Christmas gift. Did I share everything? I think so. So I'm really pleased with how it came out. It gives me hope to do a colorwork sweater for myself, which we'll see. Right now I'm in Christmas gift mode because I'm still hoping to get my Christmas gifts done by Thanksgiving so that December, for the first time in a number of years, I can relax and just knit what I want to knit instead of scurrying around and knitting gifts until the very last minute. And that is pretty much it for my big projects. I was in a bit of a knitting funk. I was also dealing with some things and stress, and so when I get into these knitting funks, or if I get into one of these episodes that I go through sometimes, I just tend to knit something that I can memorize, or I knit small things that I can get accomplished to give me a sense of accomplishment, and it helps me to get me out of my funks. So I decided that I would make some headbands, ear warmers, whatever you want to call them, as Christmas gifts for this coming Christmas. So I pulled out my leftover bin. I grabbed any not DK, worsted or Aran weight skeins that I had approximately 30 to 40 grams left over. If I had any 50-gram balls of wool, I grabbed a few of those and I just sort of throw them all in a little basket or a little bag, and I keep it by my couch so when I sit down in the evening and watch a movie or listen to a book, I have something to do. So I found this pattern on Ravelry. It is the woven cable, blah, 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 blah. What's it called? Woven Cable Headband by Priscillia Uloho. Uloho. I totally apologize. I probably butchered that last name. But the pattern calls for worsted or Aran weight wool and a 5mm needle, which is a US 8. I had 2 half skeins of these colors. I think they are, oh God, what's the name of that? It used to be a boutique near the Baltimore airport that went out of business, but I think they still sell their yarn online. Oh, what's it? The Knitting Boutique. How did I forget that? The Knitting Boutique. I think these are some of their colorways that I had grabbed. They were leftovers from my friend Anissa's stash when we were selling her yarn after she passed. And this definitely is also one. This one I know is their Anaconda. Oh God, I'm horrible at this. I should have written all this down and I didn't. Of course not. This is definitely their worsted Aran base, which is 100% merino. It's a pretty orangey, reddish orangey color. But I just love the cabling on these, and I think they're going to be pretty warm. This was made with, I think it was a Barocco skein, one of their Aran tweed bases. And then this one, woo, this was a deep stash dive. I don't know if any of you remember many moons ago when Malabrigo first came out on the market, their original single ply base. There was another company out of Uruguay that was called 100% pure wool, and it was that same kind of base, except this one they also had a plied base. This was one of their plied bases. It's 100% wool. And then this last one I'm going to share is Ella Ray Chunky Merino, which I think is really a pretty color. And the cables really pop on this. So those were a couple of headbands. I was actually debating on lining them somehow, because I didn't know if this would be enough, like when the wind blows, if it would be enough coverage on the ears. I'll put one on for you. Should probably do it from underneath. My hair is too long to wear like that. So I feel like if it's going to be a really windy day, you might be able to hear it. So I was debating, because the inside on the cable here, you could see there are those ridges. Let me see if I can show this. The ridges here and here. I was debating on whether I should pick up along these stitches and just knit up and then just join to this row and sort of make that interior a double layer. I just didn't know if it would have, because the headbands are woven. The headbands are knitted lengthwise, but if I pick up the stitches on the inside, I'd be knitting this way for the inside, whereas the headband was knit this way. So I don't know if that would affect the stretch or not. Have any of you ever knit any of these headbands and done anything to the inside to make it like a double layer insulation to make it a little bit more warmer? If you have, let me know how you've done it, because I think I might want to do that. I don't know. We'll see. I may try it on one and see what happens. Next up, I have several hats. 2 were test knits. One is a test knit that I had to drop out of back in April because one of the things that happened to me in April was that I was working out at the gym and I fell and I sprained my wrist and I couldn't knit for several weeks. It was awful. But this was a test knit. This is called the Spot On Hat by Daisilly. So this was a fun knit. The orange is the same orange that I used for this headband. So this, I had to finish knitting this one first before I could make this headband. And so it is definitely the Knitting Boutique Anacostia worsted, not Anaconda, Anacostia. And then the other color, it's like a very, very pale yellow with some green and orange in it. It is Haughty Knits Oscar worsted, and the colorway was called Breakdown. So this was fun to knit. I may see if I could play with the color work here and see if I could make it all like right here in the pattern. It switches so that the circles are the opposite. And I may try and re-knit this and do the whole background in all one color and keep all the circles one color. But all in all, this was a fun knit. The color work wasn't too bad on the inside. There weren't a whole lot of long floats. And I can put it on my head and I don't feel like it's puckering. I think it needs to be a little bit longer for me. I should probably knit the brim a little bit longer if I knit it again. But all in all, not too bad. So this was fun. This will go into the gift box as well for Christmas. And then my next test knit was actually more recent. I can speak today. This is the Etna Hat by Kelly G Knits. This was a lot of fun. I have not done like such an intricate colorwork hat before. So the yarn that I used was, again, another deep stash dye. Mondiale Pearl Gold Cashmere in hot pink and sterling. And these are a merino cashmere mix. And I don't remember the ratio. I want to say, I think it was 70 merino, 30 cashmere. But Ravelry has this as a sport weight. I think I would call this more of a heavy fingering. I don't think it's really a sport weight. But I went ahead and I made the hat with it anyway. With all the intricate color work, I think it turned out actually very nice. And the interior, again, the floats were not very long. so there shouldn't be any issues with stretching it. And I signed up to make the beanie version, so I may knit this again and do the slouchy version. But it knits. It fits it very well. Again, I think if I make it again, I would probably do a double brim, because I like a little bit heavier around my ears, just because of the wind can be brutal up here in the north. But as you can see, all the pretty color work. I had fun. Definitely a pattern I needed my eyeglasses for. And then the rest are just some of the hats that I knit when I was in my slump. I sort of just pull out skeins that I have, cast on, usually anywhere between 70 to 90, depending upon whether it's a worsted or an Aran weight. Here's one that's, I have no idea what this yarn is. This was from my stash. And actually, hold on, I have the ball right here. Okay, I lied. The rest of the ball must still be downstairs in my living room. I cast it on 80 stitches for this one, because it was a fairly, I think it was either an Aran or a bulky weight. It felt like an Aran or a bulky weight yarn, sort of a single ply. So I did a nice, what is that, about 3.5 inch brim. I did do, in the middle of the ribbing, I did do a, I'm drawing a blank here, a row of stockinette, so that when you flipped it up, you had a nice pearl edge. And then I did one of these little cable-y things just to give it a little detail when I got to the red, because I really like the red. And then I just went up and closed it up. So that's one. Didn't really follow a pattern for this one. I think I did some, it looks like I may have done some slipped stitches to put in maybe a little bit of detail in there. I don't remember. But there's one hat that I had cast on. This is with Divi's Autunno, Autunno. It's another bulky weight. Again, it's a single ply style roving. Single ply style yarn. I cast it on 80 stitches. I did that little braidy thing here again. Instead of just knitting plain stockinette, I put a band of seed stitch in the middle of the hat. This yarn is somewhat of a gradient. It sort of flows back and forth between the colors. It's a pretty nice, I love the color. So it's another one for the gift basket. And then I pulled out a bulky weight that I had dyed myself. I did a little experimenting with this skein. I cast it on 80. I did a 1x1 twisted rib. I did a garter ridge, and then I did another one of those braids there. And then when I saw that the color was starting to do like the, I don't know, what is that called? Pooling or flashing? I never remember what's the difference between pooling and flashing. But I put in this garter ridge, and what I did is, not that I knit it backwards. I don't know how to explain it. I basically turned, I knit to the end of the row, moved my stitch marker, and then I knit the first stitch of the next row, but then I turned my hat inside out and slipped the stitch that I had just knit back and moved the stitch marker and knit the purl row going the other way. I hope I'm making sense. And that sort of broke up the colors a little so that it doesn't totally go on. I tried to do it in here knitting like a stockinette row backwards, and it didn't work as well as, for whatever reason, as turning it inside out and doing ridge rows. So I tried to do that to sort of break it up a little, and it doesn't look like it did a whole lot of breaking up. But anyway, it was fun. It was an experiment. I still love this bulky weight. I think I called this colorway Love is Love, because again, it's written again. Why am I saying again? I didn't say again. This colorway is called Rainbow. I did it again. This colorway I dyed is called Love is Love, and it's in the rainbow colors. Bah! So 3 more hats for the gift box. And that is all I have for finished objects. So, get some water. We are going to move on to whips. So my first up is the Ghost Whisperer by Park Williams. I have actually finished the main portion, or the main body. Oops. So I need to pick up and do the sleeves. And I've tried it on and it fits nicely. The only issue I have is, unfortunately, the cast on edge is kind of tight. And I'm afraid of breaking it. So I was thinking, and I don't know how well this is going to work, since this is Rowan Kid Silk Haze. No, Drops Kid Silk. This is my first mohair sweater that I'm knitting. I've never knit a garment out of mohair. I know it can be a bitch to unravel, I'm told. And actually, I think I just discovered I did break. Yep. I think right there. I think I snapped my cast on edge. Fuckers. So, what I was thinking of doing before I discovered that I apparently did snap my cast on is I was debating on whether I could pick up stitches along the bottom and cut the bottom off. If anybody out there has done any surgery knitting with mohair like this, let me know what you did. Because I was thinking that maybe I would attempt to do that and then knit like a few rows this way, and then do maybe Jenny's super stretchy cast off. I think that's the one. So we'll see. Oh, that's the back. This is the front. So I'm pleased with this so far. It fits nicely. I am not going to put it on right now because I don't feel like changing. Next up is another test knit. The pattern is now out. I was test knitting this before I fell and sprained my wrist. It is the Ancient Moss by Melissa Kramer, Kemmerer. And I believe I've showed this in a previous podcast. So it's a lovely shawl. I'm using Madeline Tosh Silk Merino, which is a 50-50 blend, 50 merino, 50 silk, and unfortunately it is discontinued. And more unfortunate is that we have discovered that I did not have enough blue. And I have attempted to contact some folks on Ravelry that have a skein of this, but I'm thinking that some of the folks that I've contacted are not really on Ravelry anymore. So I have so far been unsuccessful in finding this color blue. It's called Deep. I'm trying to see if maybe the colorway Spectrum might work, because I'm at a section now where I'm using and it's very, very light, but it's a silvery sage green and a very light pink called Calligraphy. And oops, almost got my needle stuck there. So it's a pretty pattern, very easily memorize the repeats. You just have to make sure you count your rows. And unfortunately, like I said, I had to stop knitting this when I sprained my wrist. And by the time the test knit was over, the designer had upped the yardage on that color, on that particular color, not that particular color, but get your thoughts together, Dorothy. This pattern calls for 3 different colors. And when the test knit pattern came out, the amounts were different from what is now listed on Ravelry. So I have run out of the dark blue called Deep, and I still have the silver leaf and the Calligraphy. And the Calligraphy was the only one listed that needed a second skein of this colorway, and luckily I had it. So I don't know how I'm going to finish this. I may just keep going in these 2 colors until I run out of yarn, and that'll just be the end of it, because the person I contacted, or the few people that I contacted that had the colorway Deep listed as for sale in Ravelry, have not contacted me back. The other day I did contact a few other people who have 1 skein in their stash to see if they'd possibly be willing to sell their skein, but I have not heard back from anybody yet. So I think I will just continue in this section until I need to add the blue back in. And if I don't have the blue by that time, I may just finish it off, which is a shame, because I really love this yarn. I love how this is coming out. I'm loving the subtle colors of the silver leaf and the Calligraphy in the blue. It's just so pretty. And of course, with it being 50% silk, it's going to have a lovely drape. And this is being knit on a size 5.5, my Chow Goose. 5.5 is US 9, I believe. So we'll see what happens with this. My next whip is my Anthology Throw by Helen Stewart. I am using my Advent, my Christmas Advent from last year from Mystic Fiber Company. It is a stunning fade Advent. There were 25 skeins, so it had more yardage than the pattern called for. I am on the last row. Or actually, I think I'm getting ready to bind off. But here, and I can't show you the full thing because I'm sure all of you know already, it's a circular blanket. It starts from the middle, but it fades out. And you can see that the big jump from the color in here, from the first color to the second, but then from the second to the third, you see, but then after that, you don't really see it again. You see some of it, but it's just the most stunning fade I've ever seen. I cannot wait to have this finished. It's just, she did a fabulous job. I don't think I've ever seen a fade done so well. So I'm super excited to get this. I used every bit of this yarn. I have my little ball on the inside. So that's all that I have left. This is going to be my cast off. And I pray to God that I have enough. I did Russian joins between all the other skeins, so I was able to use every last bit. I did do an extra round of the basic pattern for this blanket because I had so much extra yarn, and now that I'm on the very last colorway, I extended the edging pattern. You can see the edging pattern starts right here. And I want to say on the original pattern, it was only a few rows, but since I had so much yarn still, I just continued on. So this just needs to be cast off and then blocked. And I'm so super excited. The only thing I'm worried about, can you guess? Can you guess? I'm worried about these dark colors here. So I'm thinking I might attempt to, when I go for my first try at wet blocking, I may dip this in the water first to see if it bleeds. And if it does, get a whole lot of color catchers and keep doing this until it stops bleeding. Because I really don't want any green coming up here, but we'll see what happens. Maybe if I have enough left over in the, after the bind off, I can knit a little swatch and then throw it in some water and see if it bleeds. But, so I am super excited that this is almost finished. And I looked at the oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you, it is the Mystic Fiber Company. They are out of Florida. So I think they've rebranded themselves, because I think they used to be the Miami Fiber Company, because I think that's what comes up on my credit card statement. But I did look to see what their advent for this year was going to be, and I wasn't crazy about the colorways, so I didn't get their advent what is advent? I did not get their advent for this year. Next up, I have, let's see, this is another pattern that I was test knitting before I sprained my wrist. These were the Magic Heel Slipper Socks by Judy from the Autumn Acorn. And so I had to stop, but they were nice. This is the heel part. I have since, I'm using, not Let Lopey. What's the other one? It is Let Lopey. The other one is Ploto Lopey. So I am using Let Lopey. I decided I would sort of mix colors. So I did a light gray and a dark gray. So it gets this nice marling effect here. And then I'm doing the toes and the cuffs in that green. But I may have to pull these out. I may have to pull these out and start over, because a couple of people, even though I could not finish the test knit because of my wrist, I was still in the chatter thread, so I got to hear what some people were saying. And I think what happened is, because there is no nylon in Let Lopey, they were finding that their socks were wearing very quickly. So I was debating on pulling these back out and possibly adding either mohair, like a strand of undyed mohair with it, or maybe if I can find like maybe just a nylon thread to see if that would make it a little sturdier, because these were going to be a gift knit for Christmas. So I haven't decided. I have to go back and reread that thread to see what some of the other folks have decided to do. But these were knit on size, because I cannot read my needles, 5.0 5mm needles. So these are my blue Haya needles. So 5mm. These were fun. If you have not tried Judy's Magic Heel Slipper, not Magic Heel Slippers, but her Magic Heel, she has a pattern for the Magic Heel. I can speak this evening. She has a pattern on Ravelry for sale for the Magic Heel. So if you don't specifically know a person's exact foot measurements, or you have an idea, you could use the Magic Heel for them and still knit them a pair of socks. And then the last one I'm going to show you, I actually just started the other day. It is the, oh gosh, what's this called? Schoolhouse Run Headband. I will put a picture of it up here because I don't have the pattern. It's actually, I just downloaded it. I'm knitting it off my computer. But it's by Penrose Knits, and it calls for a worsted or DK weight yarn. I decided I pulled some, I had a skein of Shibui sock in my stash, and I had some leftover Miss Babs Moon Glow, which is her mohair silk base. This was the Maryland Sheep and Wool 2021 colorway. I think it was Daisies. I don't remember. But I used this in a hat and I still had approximately half a skein. So I thought I would mix it with it's Shibui sock, and it's colorway number 4103. And if you're going to be able to see that, clearly you're not. But it's a pretty mix. That's a little pretty mix of hot pinks, bright oranges, and light yellowy oranges. But mixed with the mohair, it looks really pretty. And so the premise is these eyelets are going to wind up being the picot edge. So I'm looking forward to getting this finished. And this is in one of my little Halloween bags. I haven't put the strings in it yet because it's just been sitting right next to me on the couch. It hasn't traveled anywhere yet. And that is it for my whips in progress. So I wanted to share one other thing. Very, very disappointed. I bought this bag from Toad Hollow pre-pandemic. So it was probably the 2019 Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. It's one of my favorite bags. We are the granddaughters of the witches you were never able to burn. Someone had spilled coffee on it, so I had checked their website. Sure enough, they say that their bags can go through the wash. And so I sprayed the section that had coffee with some, I don't know, fabric spray for spots, and threw it in the wash inside of a garment bag. And I'm very, very disappointed that it came out like this. Which tells me that they did not leave enough canvas on the edging here. And yep. Very disappointed. They did not leave enough canvas for when they sewed it up. There should be a good 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch of fabric over there. And I can feel that they have it on the bottom, which I don't know if you can see this or not. But see, here's the bottom, and the sew line is right there. So there's a good 1/4 of an inch here that would prevent the canvas from fraying and splitting. But obviously up here, as I'm pulling the bag apart, they did not leave enough canvas on this side seam. I attempted, this is Toad Hollow from New Jersey. I sent them an email, I sent them pictures. I was very disappointed, and I was more disappointed that I got no response to my email. Sad to say, I probably will not be buying any more canvas bags from them. Well, let's move on to acquisitions now, the fun stuff. I'm only sharing 2 acquisitions with you this evening because the last time I purchased yarn prior to these 2 items was back at Maryland Sheep and Wool. I purchased a sweater's quantity worth of yarn from Into the Whirl, which is packed in my sweater box. It has a pattern with it. I cannot remember. It's the Boobly pattern, but I cannot remember the designer's name. And it's on the tip of my tongue. I can even see her face in the pattern, and I can't remember the name. Isabella Kramer. Holy crap, I can't believe I just did that. Isabella Kramer. And the other yarn I bought, I have right here. I purchased this double skein set from Bumblebee Acres Farm. It's a one-of-a-kind. It's Cottage in the Glade. It's a Surrey silk. That's why I got it. Spun Sugar. It's a baby alpaca and silk blend. And then what they call their Ziggy sock, which has these little nubs in it, which I'm not a green person. And I know, you know, big if, Lisa from Knit All the Yarn was watching me right now, she'd be like, what do you mean you're not a green person? But the green with the purple and the magenta and the pink, I kept coming back to this, and my friend Melissa was like, that's the third time you're picking up that skein, you're buying it. So I bought it. And I'm planning to use these in a shawl. I just haven't decided how yet. But oh my God, this baby Surrey is so soft. But yeah, that was the extent of my acquisitions at Maryland Sheep and Wool. And so the two acquisitions that I'm sharing with you today are for Halloween. So the first one I bought a mystery kit, and I bought it from Polka Dot Creek Yarns. It's a 13-day advent, which I have not started yet, because I can't remember. I had 13 days before Halloween. So, and I have one other Halloween advent that's still on its way. It's coming from Whimsical Woods Yarn. It's the dyer that does all the ass names for her yarns. I can't wait to see what she comes up with for Halloween. But it's the first time I have done her advent. This is the second time I've done Polka Dot Creek, but the first Polka Dot Creek was their Christmas Grinch one, which had 25 different indie dyers all collaborating on the Grinch theme. And then I bought this lovely packaging, some Halloween sock yarn. This is from Potions and Pearls. I just happened to find them on Etsy. And this is called I Put a Spell on You. Look at those colors. How could I resist? You would have thought October 1st I'd have this all wound up, but I haven't yet. My sock knitting mojo sort of squelched after I fell and sprained my wrist. And that is all I have for acquisitions. I have been a very, very good girl the last few months. So, I hope you don't mind. I am going to work on this headband while I give you guys my updates of why I have not been around the last couple of months. So it all started back in April. I was at the gym. For those of you, if you are new, I go to a kettlebell gym in my area. I work out, or I attempt to work out 3 to 4 times a week. And so I was at a workout, and it's a giant rubber band that's attached to the wall, and you step into it, and it's a good maybe inch and a half thick, wide, and then I'd say probably a good 1/4 of an inch thick. So it's not like a rubber band that's going to snap. And what you do is you put this band around your waist, the other end is attached to the wall, and you run out as far as you can against the resistance of the band, and you run back in. And I was going out pretty far, and the thing is when you do those resistance runs, those sprint outs, you really need to like pay attention to what you're doing, because those bands are strong. Let me tell you, they snapped me back. I had sprinted out far enough that I was, trying to be cute and do one of these to the person in front of me. And it took that much. It took an instant for that band, for the resistance of the band to pull me off balance and literally pulled me back across the room. And all I kept thinking is, I don't know how many of you have ever had something happen where it feels like it's happening in slow motion, even though it's probably, a blink and it's over. All I kept thinking as I'm flying backwards is, I cannot hit my head. I can't hit my head. I can't hit my head on the wall. I can't hit my head on the iron post that this band is attached to. So of course, you throw your weight to the floor, and I used my arm to break my fall, and it was a doozy. So I had sprained my wrist. I didn't think anything of it. It seemed to be fine at the time. I got up, I continued with the rest of the workout. Home. I thought it was probably just sore. I went home, you put ice on it, you take a couple of Advil, you take a shower, you go to bed. I woke up the next morning. I couldn't lift my phone with it. It hurt so badly. I couldn't even lift the water bottle. I couldn't lift the water bottle empty, never mind full. So I went to work. From work, I'm like, oh my God, I tried to call my hand doctor, the same doctor that I went to when I had my trigger finger. He couldn't see me that day. I think he was going to see me, I want to say maybe 2 days later. And I was like, and my assistant convinced me to call patient first, to go in and at least get it x-rayed to make sure I hadn't broken anything. So I went to patient first. I got x-rays done. They didn't see anything broken, but they put me in not a sling, but a brace. I'm losing my words here. So they put me in a brace that was, basically going to keep my wrist. And then when I did get to my doctor, he looked at the x-rays. He didn't see anything. He took another set of x-rays where they did a little bit more manipulating of positions and stuff, because apparently there is a bone in your wrist that's right about here. It's very difficult to see it in x-rays. And so he was wondering if maybe I had broken that bone, because this really was the most tender spot. But he kept me in the brace. He had me come back in another week. I came back in a week, and the pain was still, it was a little bit better, but I still couldn't, I couldn't lift. Like if this water bottle was full, I couldn't lift it. And so he, a few weeks later, he wanted me to go in for an MRI. Needless to say, I still have not gotten the MRI. Why? Because as fate would have it, the next day I woke up and I had the strangest yet the most incredibly painful sciatic issue. I'm telling you, when it rains, it pours in my life. So here I am. I couldn't crochet. I couldn't knit. I couldn't do anything because of my wrist. And then I started having sciatic issues. And it was weird. Like I had one minor sciatic incident, but it never went all the way down my leg. And I've heard, my mom had bad sciatic, and I've heard, friends and people talk about it. And so I was going to my gym because the owner is also an acupuncturist. And so I went to him, was going to him for, not for my wrist, but he was doing some things to help my wrist as well. But I was going to him because I had pulled a muscle in my back. At least that's what I thought it was. And I don't know if maybe it was the precursor to the sciatic, but I felt like I had pulled like this muscle right back here. So he had treated me for that one time. And when I went back from my next appointment, he was like, "So how's the back?" I said, "Well, I've got good news and I've got bad news." And of course, he just looks at me like, "Okay, what's the good news?" I said, the good news is my back doesn't bother me anymore." He goes, "Wow, well, that's great." He's like, "Okay, what's the bad news?" I said, "The bad news is I have the weirdest sciatic issue." He goes, "And why do you think that's not part of your back?" I'm like, I don't know. So what was happening is, normally when I think of sciatic, and when you read most of the things about the sciatic and the sciatic nerve and how it's pinched, it's a sharp shooting pain that goes down the leg. Mine didn't go down the leg. Mine radiated across my ass and around to my thighs. It was, I can't even explain the intensity. It felt like someone had like cattle prodded me. And it was so weird because it was not a constant pain. It was, if I would move a certain way one time, it wouldn't do anything. And I'd be like, okay, so I could move that way. And then the next time I would move in the exact same manner, bam, it would just, and it was just debilitating. Like when it shocked me, it was like on my knees, falling on my bed, whatever I was doing, it was just like, oh my gosh. I could not even explain it to you. It was, I would say that the pain that I was getting from it was right up there with the pain that I was getting years ago when I had kidney stones. Excruciating. I thought changing bed sheets when your back was out, when you have a pulled muscle in your back, was bad. Oh my God, I can't tell you. Every time I tried to put the corner of the bottom sheet on the mattress, I'd fall on my bed because it would get me. Every single corner. Every corner. So that lasted for a few weeks. Luckily, my acupuncturist did a really great job. But the acupuncture definitely helped with the sciatic. And I would say within 2.5 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, it was gone. Totally and completely gone. I wonder if it was a side effect to the fall, because when I fell, I landed on my hand and I landed on my ass pretty hard. And it wouldn't surprise me if the impact of the fall just took a little while to make its way up my spine, like to that impact and the jarring of the bones did something. But like I said, either way, the sciatic was gone. I'm still having wrist issues. I can't fully extend this way without having some pain issues here. and I still can't do push-ups or fully push my weight on my arms with my wrist at a 90-degree angle. I should probably go back to my arm person and maybe get that MRI done. But it has been so long, and it is a whole lot better than it was. And I know that bad sprains take a long time to heal. I can't tell you how many people have told me I'd have been better off if I had actually broken my wrist. I'd probably be fully healed by now. But anyway, then once those two were out of the way, we went into testing mode at school, because it was May at that point, May, June. So we were going in testing mode, and then we were going into graduation mode, and then we were going into end of the year mode, where we had to collect all the library books and all the Chromebooks back from the seniors, and it was just exhausting. And then I started to slide. I deal with episodes of depression and anxiety, and I was having a really hard time. I could feel myself slipping into one of my episodes in June, and it affected my knitting, or it affected my crafting in general. I was not crafting as much. I was not attending my knitting group as much. I was starting to slack off at the gym, which I know is like the worst thing I could do when I'm starting to have one of those episodes, because I need the gym and the serotonin flowing to get me into a better mood, but it's a constant battle. I am on medication for depression, but sometimes I still have my episodes. And then over the summer, I was helping my friend Carol a lot. I was taking her to a lot of her doctor appointments. For those of you that are new to this podcast, my friend Carol was suffering and dealing with lung cancer. And so she was in and out of treatment. She'd been dealing with this for almost a year now. And during the school year, I couldn't help out as much, but a lot of my friends who were retired could. So over the summer, I did as much as I could to give them a break. And watching Carol go through this probably didn't help my depressive episode at the time. But she was sort of on the road to recovery. I had gone to one of her appointments with her, and she allowed me to come in with the doctor so I could hear what the doctors were saying as well, because I think she brings a notebook and she writes everything down. But sometimes when you're in the middle of conversations and the doctors ask you something, you can't remember. But sometimes the friend, because the friend is not as antsy about the diagnosis or the procedures or whatever, that the friend can offer up some not advice, but oh yeah, Carol, don't you remember when this happened? Or Carol, you talked about this, don't forget to mention that, and things like that. But I was in a meeting with her oncologist, and they were talking about how the cancer was starting to shrink. The areas of cancer that she had in her lungs were actually starting to shrink. And that as a whole, the amount of cancer that she had was no more than the size of an orange in her lung. And of course, she thought that was bad. And the doctor was trying to explain, that the amount of capacity that your lungs carry, an orange, a lung can basically carry like a 10-pound bag of oranges or something to that effect. And so hearing that her masses were shrinking was like an encouraging effect. The only thing that they were trying to do now was get the pain management in her hip under control. And that finally happened. And then she went to another appointment. She went to another appointment and she was having issues breathing again. She wasn't able to keep her oxygen levels up. And so it had gotten so bad that the doctor immediately had her go to the emergency room to be admitted. And she was admitted that evening. She was in the ER area all day because they were waiting on a room in the hospital. She was in the hospital for about, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And they had done a procedure on her. They wanted to try and get some of the whatever was in her lungs to come out. And she did not want to be intubated for this procedure because there was a very good chance that they would not be able to bring her out, or they would not be able to, I don't know how to explain this. They would not be able to unintubate her. It could be that night, it could be the next day, it could be a week, it could be never. So she fought it. Not that she fought it, but she told the doctors, and her and the doctor discussed it, and they decided that she would stay awake for this procedure. They were not going to intubate her for this procedure. She hated it. She said the procedure felt like she was being waterboarded. And she hoped that she never ever had to do that again. And so when she expelled whatever tissues or whatever was breaking down or whatever was in her lungs, they sent that in to be tested. And I don't think we ever found out the results to that, because she wound up being put into ICU because she was having real issues with keeping her oxygen levels up. And then she was in the ICU unit, and she wound up having to be intubated. She was intubated for about a week. We took turns. We took shifts during visiting hours to be with her because she was out. She was out, but she could hear us. That's what the doctor said. And that started on a Sunday. By Friday night, she went into hospice care. Thursday night she went into hospice. I worked Friday. Saturday I went to go visit her. She had a plethora of friends and family with her. Her 2 boys. One of her boys was there with his girlfriend, and her best friend was there, and I stayed for a little while, and she passed away the following Sunday morning. So that's been my life the last couple of months in a nutshell. I think about her constantly. She was my little cheerleader when I would have my little depressive episodes. And over the summer, I had done part of what happens, or part of what puts me into a depressive episode sometimes, is clutter, and my house was getting to be overly cluttered to the point where I think I would have been on an episode of Hoarders. Not like food all over the floor type of Hoarders, just clutter, just, not being able to put things away, having too much shit and not a spot for everything. So she was my cheerleader over the summer for that. And I managed to purge a good 90% of my house, and Carol would always text me, "How are you doing today? What rooms did you get done?" And I couldn't even bluff it with her, because she'd say, "Okay, send me pictures of what you did today." And on days where I couldn't be motivated, I'd be like, "Carol, I didn't do anything." So "That's okay. You could take a break. Nothing wrong with taking a break. You've done so much so far." She was the most positive person I ever knew. And I can't talk anymore about her. So, sorry. I told myself I wasn't going to cry. So on that note, I think I am going to end this because I'm going to cry. I'm going to go have a good cry over my friend. And I will be back with another episode, hopefully in 2 weeks. I think I'm going to give you guys an update on all my blankets. As some of you old timers know, I have several scrap blankets in the works and several other blankets. So I thought it would be nice to pull them all out and see where I am on them now that the weather is starting to get cold and I can have blankets on my lap again. So I think the next episode will be a blanket episode. So with that, I wish you all much love and joy and happiness in your life. Make sure you hug the ones you love. And I will see you guys soon. Ciao, ciao. Let's try that again.